So, is there a place that we can go that's beyond these mind cracks that we're living in? Beyond the right and the left, beyond the blue and the red, beyond the up and the down, beyond the male and the female and everything in between, and all of these cracks that are completely driving us all insane? They are not just personal mind cracks, they are collective mind cracks. Well, yeah, there is. And the solution is to get on that God search. Hi, I'm Michael Shevack, and welcome to God Search. And this podcast, you're going to learn how to have the experience called God. I begin a lot of podcasts with this because I'm reminding you here with all of the conversation we're having about all the difficulties in religion and the difficulties with spirituality and all of the cultural problems, that these things are interferences with job one. Job one is to teach people how to live and have an experience called God. The experience called God is framed, as we said from the very beginning, by three things. One is an experience of unity, where between us, between others, between all of the other creatures on earth, between everything that happens, all the betweens, right? All the betweens. There is a harmony and a sense of a solidness and a unity and a singular tissue beyond a whole, unfathomably, delicately stitched together and quilted together. That unity is a sublime experience, and it's what governs your God search. The other criterion, going way back to the beginning, is truth. The experience called God reveals the essence and substance of truth, of truth. And I'm not just talking what we call propositional truth, where, the sky is blue. Well, it may be blue, it may be gray. These things are provable. We can do little experiments. I'm talking about the deeper, intimate, substantial truth of being alive. The feeling that a mother has of a baby that is one with her body. That's the truth of the reality of life. And the third thing is the effective use of an amazing talent that we have as supernatural creatures beyond nature. That's what it literally means, to cause and effect, sow and create, so much so that we would conceive in our scriptures of there being such a thing as a creator God, because there is no other way to possibly explain who we are. We're not merely creatures of earthly nature when we can go to the moon. We are not bound to this hunk of planet in our sector of the Milky Way. The effective use of our ability to cause and effect in a way that isn't merely natural is something that, as we continue our God search, provided we don't repudiate it and decide to be monkish, because that's a different spiritual path, that ability becomes honed, more focused, more purposeful, and more able to share with other people. Sharing is a big thing. Now, we've discussed a lot of the foundational problems that we're dealing with in life and in our culture right now. The last podcast, on podcast number 38, we discussed a little bit more of the problems around what's called natural law and the fact that there are different formulations of natural law, and there are different views that are taking place in the United States to kind of reconfigure some of the errors, the philosophical errors and excesses of the founding fathers, at the same time as balance and rebalance some of the return to more traditional formulations of natural law, which are more fundamentally religious and authoritarian. So we discussed that. There is another kind of natural law, which has recently surfaced. It's been around. It's been American transcendentalist, Walt Whitman, Thoreau, Emerson. It emerged in the 1960s. And whether or not you're aware of it present, because it's not very vocal, you see it every once in a while popping out on talk shows or on new age commentaries. You begin to get a hint of it, though it's become slightly distorted. And this is a natural law that asserts that there is actually a source of natural law which is beyond our reason and ability to use our reason to discern it. You see, the fundamental thing that all the natural law philosophies have, whether it's the Greek philosophy or the Thomistic philosophy or the Enlightened Fathers, is the is that it was the use of reason to be able to discern from life the order. We call that, the experience called God, that the authority of life is what instructs us here. And it is very true. It's part of our everyday life experience. It's part of being alive, which is why you're on a God search. You cannot avoid a God search if you are alive. But there is something beyond that formulation of natural law. And it has to do with a reframing of the word natural. The word natural oftentimes is considered to be part of the earth, and that is I would write it with a small n. It's birds, bees, and trees. But as I said, we're not restricted to this planet. We can move outward to planets beyond us, and hopefully galaxies way beyond us, once our technology improves. That kind of natural law is different. It asserts something beyond reason. It asserts that there is shall we say, a host. I don't mean the heavenly hosts like they did in Bible times, which were like the planetary orbs. That there is actually a nature, a true nature to life. And this nature we would write with a capital N. This is the nature in which every subordinated nature exists. This is the nature that exists prior to any universe that we may have. This could be said to be the universe of all universes. This could be said the reality of all realities, or the reality in which or within which any subordinate realities, such as our little planet from the third rock from the sun, exists. This would be an existence that is so total that any minor existence, my existence, your existence, anyone's existence, a flower, a dog, all of these things are all existences within this existence and partaking of this existence. You might call it nature with a capital N, meaning divine nature or ultimate nature. Some people might call it divine mind. It gets into a little bit of a difficulty because historically, in the history of philosophy and religion, especially religion, there was a distinction made between historical cultures, meaning material human civilizations that were not bound to the laws of nature. We discussed that. That's technology. And those that were restricted to the laws of nature. So the word nature got maligned. We discussed this way back, I think it was podcast 18, and the nightmare of history that included Hiroshima and the Holocaust popped out of this mind crack that everyone was sharing. In fact, it revealed itself when Oppenheimer, that movie was really spectacular, quoted the Bhagavad Gita and began to bring the Eastern philosophy, which is the American transcendentalist with divine mind, nature with a capital N, together with knowledge over earthly nature through human nature, and the three different natures, divine nature or capital nature, human nature, and earthly nature, began to fully cooperate. This was a material outpicturing of the philosophy of the Catholic Church, which became the force behind history and was essentially a reconstruction and representation in material form of the mystery that is Christ. We'll talk about that. It's a very specific theological goal. It's a beautiful goal, whether you're Christian or not. And it will be interpreted different ways depending on whether you are Christian or not. The same teaching exists in many, many different places, not to demean one person's view or the other person's view, or to take away Christian belief, which oftentimes considers itself to be the one true religion. What I'd like to do is talk about that divine nature right now, that there is hope. Our mind and its cracks and our ability to discern how life works by reason, meaning we have the faculty, we are born of that mind, and therefore we have the ability to discern how the organizational structure of life works. That is an ability. But if we focus merely on that natural law, which partakes of reason, we're going to miss it. Now, the reason natural law emphasized reason was because it was dealing with a history of moral teachings and legal teachings, which had to be concerned, which were a big concern, especially in the Bible. How do you, if you're going to get rid of the idea of revelation, meaning the sky opened up and a book fell down, the sky opened up and a human fell down, the sky opened up and an angel came down to speak to someone. If you're going to have a problem with revelation because we're in a more secular scientific era and secular scientific knowledge preceded this, it was a foundational to a new foundation. It was a different way of looking at things that had to be accommodated. Well, you needed an approach that would give you some kind of authority like revelation, but wasn't stuck in the belief that these books and these stories were absolutely 100% certain. There is not a religion in the world that does not interpret itself as it grows and experiences more knowledge. But if we now have to go to another level of what we can also term natural law, which is the level where we as human beings have the ability to transcend, it's a great word, transcend our reason, transcend our thinking or our learning about how life works, and actually move beyond our discernments, move beyond our judgments, move beyond our clumsy judgmentalism, which creates these extreme polarities and mind cracks, which, once we believe them, act on them, and bring them into the world, unfortunately, we sow and reap an absolute mess, which is what we're doing right now, especially in the United States, but other people are doing it as well. We have to be always conscious, as we did in podcast number 1, that there is a mind that's greater than any mind. There is a mind that is greater than any human thought. There is a reality that is greater than any opinion. There is truth, and everything else is truth within certain limits, within certain parameters, within certain experimental controls. And there is truth, and therefore there is validity within those smaller frameworks. Such an assertion that I am sitting here is a perfectly great assertion. It is valid provided I'm on the earth and I'm not orbiting the Earth outside the field of the most close field of gravity that would exist, which is the planet. People are always asserting validity and asserting it as the complete truth. It's an extremely subtle form of idolatry, that ancient scourge where you take a human thought and a human representation and a human creation and a human artistry, and you imbue it with so much power that you worship it and you create a box for yourself that you can't get out of. Well, when we're talking about the divine mind or nature, capital N, beyond any scale of possible natures, galaxies, universes, planets, rocks on the earth, a formation beyond any formation we could know. So much so that we would call it formless, meaning not having a form we could ever fully ascertain or any fully know, because to know that, we would have to know every single nature within nature, every reality within reality, every experience within experience. I got to tell you, I've been married 44 years. I still don't know every reality and experience, or I don't fully know even the nature of my own wife after 44 years with 3 children and 2 grandchildren. Certainly, I'm handicapped as a mere individual to know that completely. But that divine mind, that nature above all natures, that ultimate nature, commonly called God by people, but not carefully. And we'll go back to the defining this God thing as we continue. But that mind or that being that has the capacity to shape itself into the various things that we have. Some people like to call that a quantum field now. I have a little bit of problems with that. But that mind, that fundamental strata of existence, the rug under all existence out of which the tree grows. The tree doesn't grow on the rug. The rug is there and it's bigger than the tree, it's bigger than the car, it's bigger than my suspenders. It's but it's not. It's also intimately involved in the structure and the substructure of everything that takes place. That mind is something that we need to remind ourselves about. For Jewish people, they need to understand that that mind exists beyond the reverence and beauty and astonishing precision of the recorded law in the Torah. For Christians, it's incredibly critical that in revering the divinity of a human being, which is a magnificent, magnificent assertion, and it, for all I know, it could be true. I'm only a human being. But it's very important that saying that isn't equivalent to calling on the name of Jesus, and anyone who calls on that name is now a perfect prophet. Any knowledge that he has is already yours. And then from that so called perfect prophecy, you can go ahead and administrate as if you are God. We have to be careful there. We must go from an understanding of the Trinity to a mystery of the Trinity, meaning there is an internal relationship within God functions, within these triune aspects that is beyond the mystery and beyond not the mystery, beyond the reason of a mere human faculty, beyond the natural law of the founding fathers. The reason is there, but do not forget that the rights are not endowed by reason. The rights are evident within the world, self-evident, but they're self-evident under a creator. We must never forget that the magnificence of the Quran. It's an extraordinary book. Do not see it from the eyes of prejudice. Do not see it from the eyes of anyone's prejudice. See it as scripture for its time, its place, and for a herald of future. It's very important that we understand that the scripture partakes of a mystery that is greater than it. However much it reveals it, however much it is considered flawless and perfect, so perfect that it cannot be translated. Nonetheless, it participates in a mystery that is greater than that. Same thing with science. And we talked about this. If you're going to worship Newtonian physics and reduce our, universe, our solar system to a little clockwork, well, that's perfectly great. Uh, but you're going to have problems when you examine the orbit of Mercury, and do not get imprisoned by your own ideas. There is a mystery that is larger than the reason that Newton drew on to create his vision of how our solar system worked. And there is a reason beyond Einstein, who corrected Newton, that we're only now beginning to fathom, which was implicit in special relativity. We're beginning to now see the prejudices of his reason that were limiting the viewpoint. So even in science, if you do not allow for a mind that is greater than any subsidiary minds, a mind that is greater than any stage of the development of human mind, you will have a problem. Same thing in evolution. Okay, we will discuss that more deeply, but while there is such considerable evidence that there is an evolutionary process, and even the most strict biblical interpretations now have given way to microscopic evolution, it's witnessed in the flu virus. There is an evolutionary process. What is under contention is the evolution between species. There's a complex reason for that, and don't think it's mere ignorance. It's not. Every single viewpoint has truth in it that should be woven into our understandings. And the viewpoint of even the most staunch religionists in regard to interspecies evolution is critical. It holds a placeholder for something that is seriously missing in the theory of evolution. Now, evolution may exist, but the theory is a mental construct. It uses reason and observation, but let's not get lost and worship our theories as actual perfect, you know, descriptions or models. That's a mistake. The theory of evolution is needs more work and more evolving unto itself. Whether the fact or not exists, that's a very, very complex discussion. And it involves all sorts of things that we need to talk about, including the existence of how cognition takes place so that we can observe anything changing in time. It's so delicate and rarefied, I don't even want to go there because we wouldn't even get into one episode. But the most important thing we're inverting here from the caution in our first podcast of creating an idol when you use the most dangerous G word. And now we're turning it around, and instead of caution, we can replace that with awe. AWE. An awesome unity, an awesome truth, an awesome causal nature to everything that we as human beings participate in. It is awesome. And the Hebrew word for a God that you should fear is the same as a God that you should have awe, i.e., so much power that you feel your subsidiary place in creation. You're not as big as that. On the other hand, when you see it positively, you realize, oh my God, that is so special. I cannot believe that it created me. You see, there are two views, both the humility and the exaltation, both the natural and the supernatural, within something which is, as we talked about earlier, transnatural. It's it's transnatural relative to us. It's natural with a capital N. Now, the divine mind exists. Call it anything you want. Call it the mystery of the Trinity. Call it Allah. Call it, you know, Yud Hey Vav Hey. I'm not going to say the name. Call it the name. Whatever you call it, there are many names. That primary field of unity exists. It is real. It is tappable. I am asserting that because I've never not noticed that it is present, and when there is a mind crack, it does not bring the knowledge of itself that heals the confusions and the polarizations in my mind and the mind of others. And I've seen that as I heal, that there's a radiation that takes place that affects other people. So I know that the principle of covenant, the principle that some religious people call the Holy Spirit, exists. I've seen people who are astonishingly advanced have a resonance that tunes me like they're like a tuning fork, and I'm a mere piano string. And that tuning fork that hits all of a sudden sends a vibration, and the piano string plays even though I don't have to hit the keys. This experience, which is ongoing between all of us and between all creatures, is very, very real. We can discern it. We had a dog, her name was Madeline. And when my wife was a little sick, she went through a very, very bad spot. Madeline would hover around her, but the curious thing is she would always get sick. So when there was a little bit of a thyroid problem, Madeline got sick. And we went to the doctor, and lo and behold, she had the same condition. The love, which we're going to talk about in the next podcast, love, the love that the dog had allowed her to resonate and take into herself, her maternal side took into herself the pains and sufferings of another person. This is real. This is real. If you are feeling the tragedy of what is going on right now in our world, and the divisiveness and the polarity and the control and the arrogance, the extreme intellectual arrogance that is asserting an absolute knowledge that no one, no mere human being can possibly have, remind yourself there is another reality here. And it is beyond reason. It is beyond rationality, for sure. It is beyond the human thought process. It's beyond the formations of our thoughts. Do I know what it is? No. But nonetheless, you can sense it. And the more you're serious about your God search, the more it will reveal the nature of its nature. Now, this does not mean if you're an average householder and you're here to, get married, have kids, have a house, whatever you want to do, and you want to be material and stay in this material life, and you're not interested in leaving this world and going to another realm, you're not monkish, you're an ordinary kind of good Joe, that you have to dispense and throw out the polarizing, judgment, intellectualizing, rationality, or even the reason, the divine capacity to discern that we have. No, no, not true. We need our ability to discern. I need to know this is thumb drive. Oh, it may be circulating energy in a lot of space if you analyze it, but I need to be able to discern clearly that this is a thing. Okay. And I assert this being a thing. It is not a bunch of quantum soup to me. It's a real, actual thing that has a purpose to me. I also have to be able to use my mind in its more rudimentary stages to discriminate. I need to know, gee, I should have a salad and not a piece of chocolate cake, right? I should be able to discriminate in the original meaning of the word in Latin, which means to remove the crime, is instead of getting all nervous, oh, I gotta have salad, I can't have chocolate cake, I gotta have salad, I can't have chocolate cake, to remove it and say, aha, chocolate cake, salad, each in its own place is part of the divine economy that we all share and we participate in life. That's discriminate is important in terms of clarification of its function, and discriminate also is to remove the curse of judgment and the curse of rationality and see that chocolate cake is a really wonderful thing, and in its right place it's terrific, in its wrong place it's a poison. And then we have to be able to have judgment. We have to be able to say this is a correct approach, this is not a correct approach. It is not a correct approach, by the way, if you don't mind me being political for a second. I don't think it's a correct approach to start a government by pissing off your two neighbors, one to the south and one to the north. I don't know. I remember love thy neighbor as thyself. You know, it's a good biblical truism. You have to be careful and discreetly choose your time and place for certain legitimate concerns. Many of the concerns are legitimate. But what is the way that creates the experience of unity? What is the way that reveals truth and reveals that different views of truth are participating in the unity? That even falsities are part of this unity because we can enunciate it and they're given permission in a perfect reality to exist. It requires a level of spiritual acumen, which unfortunately, I must tell you, you know my prejudices, I don't see in many leaders. I just don't see it. I see certain gifts, some very pronounced. I see gifts of assertion that are marvelous. I see gifts of aggression that are terrific in their right place. We need that. I see gifts of open heartedness. I also see tremendous pacifism, and I see dangerous tolerance. I also see extraordinarily dangerous intolerance. There are so many things I see, but I do not see our leaders partaking of this incredible gift that surrounds us, which is a mind beyond mind, whole and beyond the cracks that we create, beyond the cracks that we can make with our incorrect use of our minds. So just a reminder, we're going to talk about love, but in the human being, because we are made of this amazing, scintillating life force with intelligence and creativity and all sorts of properties, because we have that, well, we have that too. And there are scales that we can operate on to reveal its nature through our nature. We've already talked about a material level. matter, what's underneath it, the natural level with the birds, beasts, trees, rocks, all that kind of stuff. A supernatural level, human beings who can take twigs and branches and create huts and have a very, very nice life within the restrictions of nature with very little modification of it. Nature with small n. We can have supernatural creation, right? Like the atomic bomb and going to the moon and things that are way beyond earthly nature to accomplish. And then we can possibly experience different orders of what I would call a meta-natural, meaning what is the idea, what is the structure, what is the organizational design for our particular universe. There may be more universes, so there may be many meta. And beyond that, there may be a transnatural, the divine mind, which can configure itself in many ways to create many ideas or thoughts or meta projections that create our universes out of which we are generated. The outer mystery of the divine mind has an inner reality inside us. It has its scale, and we have our scale through which we discern itself. Our reason, with a capital R, is never a replacement for the religious idea of revelation. Let me be clear. The religious idea of revelation, taking books and making them too perfect, taking reverence of traditions and seeing them outside the context of scientifically observed fact, reducing it merely to faith, believe it, believe it, believe it, even if it's false. That era is not going to play in mainstream religion. And mainstream religion is what's floundering. What's going to take place is a kind of scientific spirituality that releases the truth and the intelligence and the organizing principles that are in that mind within which we exist, that mind, that nature with a capital N, in which our human nature and all natures exist, that existence and reality within which our existence and reality and any existence and reality known and unknown, as long as it's actually possible, exists. That's the challenge of this era. And then with this extraordinary reverent objectivity, a reverent objectivity that cares deeply about truth, cares deeply about not getting trapped in the mind cracks of idolatrous scientivism or idolatrous religionism that posits absurdities, both that posit absurdities and then try to imprison people in them. Beyond that, the mystery that is life and the mystery that feeds the gift of even our errors in science and even our errors in religion, that gift opens itself up. The doors open up to an illumination and an enlightenment that we are all very hungry for. May the European Enlightenment that was the foundation of the United States of America, that was the foundation of the amazing Republic in France, that brought the healing of individual conscience to the excess of the rigidity of divine monarchy. May that incredible inspiration, the enlightenment that exists in that kind of mind, open its doors, and may we have a new enlightenment in the United States and a new enlightenment and a next stage of enlightenment in the US and around the world. That is my prayer. That is my prayer. It comes a little bit after Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. It's on my heart. I hope you accept it. the divine mind, whatever you want to call it, nature with a capital N, ultimate or divine, fundamental, primordial, ultimate, right? If you want a more scientific view, it's there. 50 plus years on a spiritual God search, I assure you. And other people who I know will assure you, we'll get them talking on the show eventually. It's there. Okay. So stay with your God search. Understand the mind cracks. Understand the knowledge that each mind crack creates, but go beyond it to the wholeness and the source and the unity and the creativity and the truth, the essence and substance of truth, which is the fabric that we live in, that we are made from. It's what makes us perfect. And out of that creativity, we have the concentrated, distilled talent to make it more perfect. So perfect that we're capable of one of the more magnificent feelings in existence and being aware of it, which is love. And we'll talk about that in the next podcast. This is Michael Shevack. Go to yourgodsearch.com and stay in touch. Uncover God, discover God, and recover God in all God's glory. Call it anything you want, but it's there. God bless. See you next week. All right. About 5:45 Eastern Daytime. Bye-bye.